All right, well, welcome everybody. I'm sorry for this this delay. I'm very good at growing herbs, but I have little understanding of. I shouldn't really say that because that's not really the case neither. Anyhow, welcome. Today we're gonna start. You can see my next page. Just making sure. Suzanne.
Yes, I can see your next page.
Okay, we are doing webinar number 2, and we're going to talk about cover crops. And I'm going to rush through this. All right, this is the first place where we are. Why a cover crop? I want you to look at the photo, and this was my land. I managed to grow herbs on this soil. This is totally clay. The reason I put this photo on was because you probably can see that there is nothing growing in the clay. There is no fiber, there's no root, there's nothing. So the grass was turned and there is an empty clay layer. And this is why you want to have a cover crop. You wanna add stuff to the soil to make it more healthy, to create a better drainage and to feed the life that is in the soil. Other thing also, you want to prevent that everything that is already in the soil from nature, that it rains out by heavy storms. Other reason for a cover crop is sometimes cover crops like oats are actually an herb, or don't forget red clover. So you do two things. You have a cover and you have an herb that you can harvest. Now for the roots, this is my same land. This is what happens. The one thing cover crop is really important for is to improve the drainage. And definitely when we are growing roots, you want to have a really good draining. If your drainage isn't good, your roots are either going to be rotting, or they're going to. If you look at the photo on the left, the root that spreads out. If you have a hard soil, your roots are going to do exactly like what this root did. It spreads out. Instead of creating one big root in the depth, it goes sideways. This is a cotton root. Cotton root normally goes like two feet deep, and it didn't happen here because it hit this hard area. The other reason it might spread out is because you are watering it, but your water stays only on the surface, so the roots have no incentive of going deeper. If you grow herbal roots, whatever you will call them, you want to water enough, you want to water so much that the root is going down and that the water stays down on a deeper level and it's already gone on the top level. So sometimes it will look like your soil is totally dried out, but if you take a shovel, you see it's still moist underneath. That's really important to force your roots to go downstairs or down into the soil. Growing roots, your cover crop is important because of the drainage. No hard pan. Hard pan is a term that's used for the area where you have been driving over with a tractor, or there's been a lot of people walking over there. The soil is meshed, and maybe you have been tilling the top level, but the tiller only goes like what, half a foot, a whole foot, not even that deep. And then there is this hard pan, and it's very hard to break the hard pan with any tool. You need to start doing crops that break it. For when you start growing flowers, cover crops are more important also for food and drainage, but the weed control is getting very important. Bushes and trees, like if you grow elderberries, you want to have a cover crop underneath your elderberry that don't ask for much attention, but that keeps your area covered. And like a grass, certain grasses, orchard grass is really good for that, because they need to protect the soil from drying out and losing in minerals. Cover crop herbs, I mean, with this is like red clover. You can totally double use cover crops and herbal use. The blue flower, in case you wonder, is a balloon flower. It's a Chinese herb, and I just love the photo. Yes. Oh, I was planning on putting this in the chat. If you go, you can maybe make a copy of this page. This link is extremely good information on everything what you want to know about cover crops. So this comes in addition to the Excel sheet that you either already got last week, or you can ask me by sending me an email. One of the types is the legumes. It's the clover. Those can be absolutely beautiful areas. This is the crimson clover that you see. It fixes the nitrogen. The trick of the legume is it takes in the nitrogen that is in the air. It goes into the plant, and when the plant dies off, the nitrogen will go into your soil. So it's important to realize that you don't, if you grow, say you grow peas, you don't want to have the peas grow and eat the peas. If you want to use your crop as a cover crop, you want to till them under or cut them off and rake them into the soil before the flowers are really full of flowering. Because as soon as that happens, it starts using its own nitrogen, and then you don't get it anymore in your soil. Of course, when your nitrogen is already very high in your soil, you're not going to plant. You shouldn't plant legumes. C to N ratio. It's important, the carbon to nitrogen. Carbon is the stuff like the leftover plants that forms the carbon, and if you let it die off, the carbon will go into the soil. Main function of the carbon in the soil is it gives a structure. It's really good for sandy soil, but it's also good for clay, so you don't have the situation that we had earlier. You have some fibers in your soil, and the water will be able to go through those fibers. Also, your next roots will be able to grow because the soil is not that hard. Taproots, they're mainly taproots. They break up the soil. They're not a very good weed preventer. Other practical issues, they require a much longer growing cycle. So if you have only like 8 weeks in between two crops, you shouldn't be using any peas, because it won't be done by the time that you need to start building or growing. They decay quick, so your nutrients or your nitrogen gets taken up, and all the other nutrients get taken up in the soil really, really quick. Most are attractive to insects. Yeah, it's especially if you have an herb farm and you have a lot of agritourism, it's really, really nice if you have an area with some nice flowers, even if it's not an herb. Grasses, you see here is the oats, and underneath is the ryegrass. Not the ryegrass, it's the winter rye that we planted here at UMES at the farm. It looks like regular grass, and I remember the first time I planted it, I totally freaked out because I thought it's just grass. But then it starts growing. This period, it starts growing, and it will cover the whole area. They are what you call nitrogen scavengers. They eat the nitrogen, so they take it out. So you use that when you have too much. I just put this all in. C to N ratio, you need to make a photo. I'm sorry, I cannot put this in the chat anymore. You make a photo of this page. You have this website, this PDF. Just type it in, it will work, and it has very basic information on what the C to N ratio really is. And although most important thing for growing herbs is that your soil is draining, the food that's in it is an absolute number 2. If you haven't done a soil test, and for whatever reason you're not planning on doing it, then still see how your soil is in drainage. This point that just pops up, Okay, well, don't ask me how to pronounce it. Whatever. Sorry, it should have practiced this before I started talking here. It sends out a chemical that actually limits the growth of weeds, which is good. That's what we want. But sadly enough, it also limits the growth of herbs. So you want to have it sit on the soil or you cut it off, you till it in, or you rake it in. You make sure it gets into the soil, and you let it sit for 3 weeks so that this weed control stops. So you can plant your herbs. Not much drainage improvement. So really, if you want to have drainage, then you should go for something, either the brassica or the peas, the legume. If you want to protect from too many weeds, then you want to go for a grass. Other important thing of the grasses is they can be planted much later than the other cover crops, which means often you have, especially as an herb grower, say you grow ashwagandha or holy basil, you don't harvest that until mid-October. Even ashwagandha you probably won't harvest until it starts freezing in November. As long as you plant the rye before mid-November, when you are on the eastern shore, it's getting different if you're going higher up, then your winter comes earlier. But after you harvest the ashwagandha, you can still plant some grasses. And just let it sit for the whole winter. We go to the brassicas. Let me see what time it is. Yeah. Brassica, this beautiful yellow stuff, is a rapeseed. It breaks the soil. All these brassicas, it's like cabbage. It breaks the soil. You can see the little turnips that I have on the paper. They are, this photo is like 2 months old. So they are very young plants, and you see the roots are already much longer than the leaves. And if I would dig them out now, they will probably have a root that's at least 1 foot long. So that's a really good way of breaking your soil. Very good preparation for planting root crops that have the bigger roots, like ashwagandha or the Chinese herbs. What else is important here? Ability for biofumigation. So it's if you really have an issue with some kind of soil-borne disease, don't try to just follow this, what I'm saying, because I am not a specialist on this, but the people at the extension services will be very able to help you, as long as you explain to them that you want them to help with your soil. Because they probably will say, I don't know anything about growing herbs, but they do understand the soil. So even as just to make sure that you're not going to get any diseases, it's a good idea to have brassicas. So a good solution is to just mix everything. Take a little bit from anything and just mix it all together, and put it in the beginning of October, maybe mid-September, and just let it sit and see what happens. Now we have forb. This photo is buckwheat. Forb is kind of like in between what we have discussed before. It does use the nitrogen, but not as much as the others. One thing that I really like is it comes and it goes. In 6 weeks, you have a cover crop and then it disappears. The one thing you need to make sure, definitely with this one, is the animals. The turkeys where we live, where we had the buckwheat, the turkeys demolished the whole field in 1 day. They came in and they ate it, and it was gone while it was still in flower. So that was actually good, because we didn't have to mow it anymore, and they did eat everything. Just be aware, those cover crops, if you have a deer problem, don't plant red clover, because they will start eating it. Anything else about this? Nope. Any questions? Let's see.
I don't see any questions.
We don't have any questions? Okay, thank you. The black oil sunflower, same thing. If you have agritourism on your land, plant some sunflowers. It looks nice. It attracts a lot of yellow finches, and it's just nice to have. Starting a root crop. I found this thing the other day. I had to make this photo. I had to copy this in here. During better times at Big Panda, it grew deep roots. Now it can weather any storm. The funny thing of root crops is they very often are what we call an adrenal support. They give you strength. And it's basically roots is what hold you onto the world. It holds the tree onto the soil. Your adrenals hold you on to your world. So it's in order to have an effective root herb as an effective medicine, your roots really need to be as tall into the soil as they can possibly be. For two reasons. One reason is very simple. You wanna make some money. So the bigger your roots, the better it is. The other hand, the bigger the roots and the healthier the roots, the better your medicine and the better people will be helped with it. And probably the more your buyer will be paying for it. It's basically what we already said. You want to get relatively loose soil. Adding sand to clay is a good solution for a very temporary situation. It's not something that stays in long because the sand will just drain through. So unless you add sand all over the time, then otherwise it's not really helpful. Use of a broad fork. Anybody who knows me knows that I love broad forks for harvest. If you just broad fork is this fork with those like a rake with those forks going in. You can put it in the soil and you can move it around a little bit and it will loosen up your soil. It will be loosened up for 2-3 weeks and then slowly it will go back to compaction. But if you combine it, if you do it right before you plant your crop and right before you plant your cover crop, it will make it a little bit easier to grow. Starting a root crop. What seeding soil to use? I realized last time we didn't really talk about any kind of soil. You can make your own seeding soil or you can buy it. If you buy it, buy good quality. Do not go to the Walmart and buy the cheapest one that they have. It's something worth investing. Some of them are extremely expensive. Some of them are relatively a little bit cheaper. The mycorrhizum, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this one neither. It really helps your seedlings to grow. It doesn't so much help with emerging, but when they start rooting, it will help them to take up the nutrients. And the same with the humic acid. That's an artificial stuff that's being made from plants, and that's being added to roots, to soil, often because there's no soil in your seedling soil, it's soilless, or because it's not a natural product, your soil, although it's based on a natural product, but they add this to just make it better. Check it out if you buy some, see if it's both in there. For root crop, I prefer to plant the seeds directly, so they're not being damaged by moving them from a small cell to a larger plug, to a pot, to the land. You can only direct seed if there is absolutely very, very little weeds, because some of the weeds will grow faster than your seeds, and then your seed will not have enough possibility to grow. I like having seed boxes 6 inches deep with something on the bottom that lets water go through, whatever you want that to be. Growing a root crop. Many people think, well, I'm growing the roots, so the weeds is not important. The weeds are important because they take away your nutrients that you want your plant to use. So sadly enough, up until the leaves are large enough to cover your soil with enough shade, you will have to weed around your echinacea, around your ashwagandha. Don't think like, well, I'm just doing the roots. It's not important. It is important. What you can do is you can add, you can throw some cover on it. You can grow them in a cover, and we will go about laying some kind of ground cover next class. You can grow them in paper. That's what I often do. The paper will hold up till the plants are big enough. For a root crop, it's not really a good idea to put mulch on there, because it will lead to rot of the top of your plant, the top of your roots. And when you dig up the plant, you see the roots, but there is this hollow area in the middle. You don't want that. The water will go into the hollow area and seep into the roots and will hollow out your roots. So keep them dry. It's very important to get rid of the weeds. Do not anything else that can give any kinds of wetness, any kind of humidity, and make sure there is a possibility that the wind will go through the plants, that they stay dry. You can plant them relatively close unless there's a high humidity. That's exactly when there's a high humidity, you want them on a large distance so it can dry out in between. So if you read a book and it says plant the plants on 1 foot distance, if they are up north somewhere or higher in the mountains, they probably have drier air than people have that are more on sea level. So the book says 1 foot, but you probably want to have 1.5 foot. And then it's nice to combine different roots. Let me see. What time is it? You should probably skip my little movie. Sorry. Yeah, we won't have enough time. There you go. I'm sorry. It was a movie, a little video of me digging up burdock roots with a broad fork, and basically it showed how hard it is to really get them out in an easy way. And it really underlines the importance to add compost to your soil before you start planting your root crops, and to have used a cover crop before, just to break open the soil. If you are in a more dry, more loamy, sandy soil, you really have a perfect soil for root crops. If you live in a more clay area, you need to do work. It's not going to be easy. Echinacea, beautiful flower.
Henriette,
yes.
I'm so sorry. We do have one question.
I noticed.
And that is, what cover crops are good for deer population areas?
Anything that is not a legume. No clover, no peas, no buckwheat, not a legume. The deer won't eat the sunflowers. The grasses are really the best. I don't think deer will eat. They might eat a little bit of the rye. They might eat a little bit of the oats, but they will not demolish it. I hope that helps. A fence is really the best, but it's excessively expensive. So. If you know you have deer, like at my own farm, I will never plant a clover, because I know they're gonna love me for it, and I'm trying to grow plants. I'm not a hunter, so yeah, good question. There is another question. Let me see what that is.
Just to thank you.
Okay, just thank you. All right, so echinacea. There's several kinds of echinacea. There's Echinacea purpurea, which is a native for this area. And then there's the Echinacea angustifolia, which has much more narrow roots. There is an endless discussion between herbalists which one is the best. But if you live on little lower laying areas and not in the Midwest, the purpurea is the most natural one to grow. And they get bigger, and I think they're more a showcase. So what I do is I plant them directly. I make an area totally clean, and I make hills or a bed for them and hide in their bed. And I plant the seeds so they start growing, and there is no limitation on the seeds, on the roots to grow. If you can do that, and I'm always doing half-half because I honestly, I don't trust it. I still don't trust it. I plant the seeds. I'm getting nervous. I want to have a security solution, so I also plant them in pots. It's maybe after a couple more years doing this, I probably trust this more. But it's if you plant them in pots, this is for all the root crops. Use the cells that are as deep as you can find them. I think the 2 inches is the deepest that you can have if you still have like 72 cells in one flat. So we're talking flats, or create your own 6-inch seed box, or buy one of the rooting bags, the black bags that are being used. They're often a little bit too high. Echinacea, easy to grow. Thing that I have become aware of, if you let them just grow wild, it's beautiful, but your roots seem to be a little bit limited because they get so close to each other, because they see themselves. So in my next round, I'm going to pull out some of the small seedlings that come in between 2 plants. Echinacea is a really cool crop also because you can both sell the roots, or you can not both. You can sell the roots, you can sell the leaves, and you can sell the flowers. That's great. You have also, when you pick the flowers, your roots will grow bigger. So it should be a profitable situation here. There's not many diseases. It's easy to grow if you have the right soil. It will not work in moist soil. It will die. It just doesn't stand it. It will flower, it will look nice, but the roots will be too small. Echinacea harvest, here you see the roots, they're big, and then they have all those tiny little hair roots with it. It's a lot of work to clean in between the roots. You want to chop them up. There's people that use what do you call them, and I forgot the word, the thing where you put pieces of wood in and then the wood gets chopped up, a wood chipper. That's one way of cutting them up, and then you wash them. You wash them, you chop them up, and then you wash them again. The way I do it is I wash them, I try to pull them apart, and then the bigger parts we just chop through with an axe or something sharp. You cannot cut through it. It's too much work. And then you wash it. Important, your last wash that you do, you always, after you're done washing, for all those roots, after you're done washing, you want to do one extra wash to make sure that your last wash was done with clean water, to prevent infection of anything that was left over in the water to stay in the plants. If we're going to start talking about like licenses and regulations, this is one of the requirements for good agricultural practices, that your last wash is with clean water. Air dry for 1 day, and then you process it. You either dry it or you tincture it. Or in the case of echinacea, other advantage of echinacea, herbalists would like to buy your echinacea fresh, so you don't even have to dry it. Sometimes they don't even want you to cut it. So when you grow it, you want to go talk with your buyer and see how they want it. And the funny thing is, in general, the price difference between a pound of dried herb and a pound of fresh herb is not that much. So it's much more profitable to sell them fresh. The problem is you need to be quick. You have to have somebody sitting there and picking them up. You can probably mail, but you should not have it in the mail for more than 2 days. So, but if you are close by to somebody, make those connections before you plant them or before you start harvesting them. Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is probably the most vulnerable for growing sideways. And you can see the root that I am smelling. Ashwagandha doesn't create one big root like that cotton that we just had. it almost always creates several roots that grow parallel. And as you can see, if there had been a hard pen, the roots would have moved out horizontally. And you can still see there are a couple of roots moving to the sides. And which is either, as I said before, it's either because of that hard pen, or it's because there had been too much water on the surface. You did not water them deep enough, and you water them too many times. Harvest from the ashwagandha, the roots are vulnerable. You don't want, like you see on the top, there's a couple of white spots on the roots. That's my fault. I damaged them when I was harvesting. Brings your profit down, brings your value down, because it will become a darker spot. So be careful. You really have to be careful when you harvest roots. Not so much echinacea. They are sturdy things, but these are more vulnerable. Yeah, so ashwagandha. So ashwagandha, you plant the seeds either directly outside, or you plant them in a pot, same thing, deep pot, and then you transfer them when they have 3 leaves. You transfer them outside. The thing that's almost always attacking ashwagandha is, I didn't spell that right, ashwagandha, is flea beetles. And this is what you get with flea beetles. They can have different colors, but they always make those nasty little things, nasty holes in it. If you have them too many, it will not kill it, but it will limit the growth. You want to be on top of it. You want to check this basically every day since you plant them. The earlier you plant them, my experience is the earlier you plant them, the less problem it is. And the stronger the plants are when you plant them, the less of a problem it is. This is the stuff you can do. I like the diatomaceous, I cannot say that neither, earth, because you can spray it on, but you also put it on the soil. Where anything you have to spray the top and the bottom, and that's going to be a lot of work when you have a lot. You can also do a crop cover, one of those white sheets. Problem with that is you really need to hold it tight on the soil so nobody can move in. And if it's warm, it might get too hot for ashwagandha. That they don't. It's not a tropical plant, so they don't want it too hot. Let me see what time it is. Oh. All right, Michael Skullcap, we have a couple of Chinese herbs. It's really the same story. Deep soil, clean out your, make sure you have no weeds in it. Michael Skullcap has beautiful yellow inside of the roots. As you can see on the photo left, it's also a gorgeous plant to grow. Perfect if you have people visiting you. Make sure that you decide if you're going to sell this to a Chinese herbalist or company or a Western. The Chinese herbalists are much more specific with the Chinese herbs in general, how they want to have it. They probably want to have exact pieces of like 3/4 of an inch, where a Western herbalist just wants to chop up. They don't care. The Chinese herbalist also will want this to be, the bark has to be removed. So it's again, check who you're going to sell this to. Go to the next one. Oops. Red sage. This is me on my broad fork. I'm standing on top of it and then I move forward or backwards. If you are, I'm not heavy enough to really do this very efficiently. If you have a little bit more weight, you're a little bit taller, then you can really get a lot of force on it. The middle is where I've just taken it out. It went very well. It was very easy, but it's because the land was really loose. We did really well with the cover crop and the compost and the right amount of watering. It still has all this soil in it. Red sage, when you start washing it, be very careful not to damage it, because the red color, you want to keep the red color. The right, you see one, what's that? It's like a group, it's probably 2 plants together. And you see the little white, the little hairy hairs on the roots. You sell it to a Chinese herbalist, they want you to get rid of those little hairs, which is a lot of work. So again, know who you're going to sell this to. red sage. I think I have said everything. Chinese herbs, in general, the growing habits are to always add fertilizer, to always add compost. And in China, it's not always a natural fertilizer. It can be anything. In the US, US grown Chinese herbs, the people that buy it expect that you are not using a synthetic fertilizer. Red sage, you can plant it now and harvest it in the fall or in the spring next year. Some of the Chinese buyers want you to even straighten the roots. They want them to be straight, which is fun to do with extra work. Yeah, I had to put in a real European, being from the Netherlands, where it's most of the land would be marsh if we didn't pump it out. Marshmallow is a very nice herb for children because they can touch the leaves. It's very soft. The flowers look like marshmallows. It helps for cough. But the roots, so you can sell the flowers and the leaves and the roots. The roots are growing because this is a wetland. They very often stay on the surface. They don't go deeper than just a couple of inches. And they can grow, I'd say several feet. They can grow 10 feet. Those plants move around too, because anywhere where the roots is, they can create a new plant. You dry any of those root crops before you start cutting them. I mean, before you dry them, you want to cut them in slices because you will not be able to do that when they are dry. There's a few exceptions, but marshmallow, cut them before you dry them. Calamus, sweet flag. I added this because it's not often grown. It's a beautiful plant. It's one of the few things that people that are having too much of wetland, they can grow calamus, sweet flag, as long as it's not salt. So any kind of Chesapeake Bay water coming in right into your land will kill your calamus. At my place, it's doing very well. Stays on the surface, spreads out a lot, and it's good use for what we call useless land. It's basically why I added it. Can only be used as a tincture. Black cohorse, to go into the other part of Maryland, black cohorse on the eastern shore, you will be able to grow it, but black cohorse they want, like what we discussed in the first class, they want to be higher up. They want to be 300-400 feet high, if not more. It's a woodland plant. You find it along the creeks in the Appalachian, for instance. It's a beautiful plant. You can grow them by imitating a woodland, or you can even grow them on a field as long as you protect them from the sun. In this area, the middle part of the east part of the US, it's getting too warm for them to grow onto the field. If you read Zach Wood's, what is it, the Carpenter's book, they grow it on a field because Vermont is so much smaller and has so much cooler and has less sun than the Mid-East has. This is one that I would personally not start by seed, although you can try it. Just plant an enormous amount of seeds. You will get a couple of plants. You can order the rice ones and just put them in multi area with leaves on top of it in the shade, and they will start growing. The seeds, you never know, like with many other wild plants, you never know when they're coming up. Definitely not with this one. The person asking the question on the deer, yes, the deer will like this. But if they just graze on them, it will come back and the roots will be okay. So, burdock, let's see what time. Burdock is both a food and an herb. Let's just go over this really quick. What you need to be aware of, there's two kinds, Watanabe and the gobo. The gobo is thicker than the Watanabe. If you sell it as food, so people chop it up, the thinner one has a higher quality. Or at least that's what people want. If people are going to use it and slice it up and use it in teas, then the other one is as good. Don't let this plant grow for a second year because it'll drive you totally crazy. The seeds will go anywhere and you'll never get rid of it. Same thing, you can sell the fresh root, or you can dry it and sell it. People that buy it are the people that have a very healthy lifestyle, people that do a detox, and people that have traveled a lot and have seen it in Asia. Also people that make that ferment food, they like burdock because it gives it a nice taste. Astragalus, we grow Astragalus last couple of years. I love the plant, it's beautiful, as you can see. This one really needs good drainage. It really needs sandy soil. If you are having loam to clay, don't even try to break it up. It's not going to work. If you have an area that used to be a former swimming pool, as a friend of mine had, you can grow this. It wants sandy soil. And then if it's totally sand, you still need to add some food. Growth takes 4 years. So what you want to do, like with all the other plants, it takes more than 1 year to harvest. You just do every year, you plant a new set. You try it out one time, you see if it works, you see if it overwinters well, and then in the spring, the next spring, you can see, okay, it didn't rot away in the winter. It has been growing really nice in the first season. Let me add some more plants. Don't think you can grow it without trying it out first. Same thing can be sold fresh and dried for really nice in soups. Yeah, let's see my time here. We have a little bit of time. I wanted to talk a little bit more about this cost profit estimate. The one thing I realized is I have been trying so hard to get more information on what does it really cost to grow herbs. Like you can get cost estimates of growing tomatoes, growing greens. I have not been able to find this for herbs. And I really want to start working on this to give people an idea of, hey, what is my profit really? Especially now the prices of all those herbs are increasing. All right, well, let me just go over this one example. Red sage, remember, is the nice red, roots. I'm confused with a restaurant close by, sorry. Your labor, you disc, till, rake, add, compost, all the preparations. This is for 50 feet. I was thinking you can do that in 30 minutes if your land is slightly prepared already. You plant your cover crop, just labor, it's not that much, say $4 in labor. Compost, you add compost, you need to buy it, but you also need to spread it out. Your seeds is an extra cost. Your labor to seed your seeds, your labor to transplant them, your labor to thin them because you will have too many plants probably. Gas, diesel, this is going to be much more expensive this year. That's one huge advantage of not using too much tilling because that's just expensive. Not using too much of your tractor, and you can limit that by doing the right cover crop approach. The tools I didn't even calculate because you can use the same tools for all your crop, but you will have an annual amount for your write-off if you bought them with a loan, or your write-off for your taxes. So you need to combine all these annual costs and then spread them out over all your crops. I will do some work on that. Maintenance, weeding, and we get to your harvest. Your harvesting tools, it's $300. It's like the broad fork. I left it in there. Your labor for harvesting 50 feet long red sage will be about 90 minutes. That's based on how much it took us. Now the washing and the drying adds almost 2 more hours. Adds even more than 2 more hours because the washing is just a lot of work with those wood crops. The drying, the cutting is a lot of work, unless you have tools with that you can do it. The same with the washing. If you have adjusted an old-fashioned or an old washing machine, you can rebuild that into a way that you can use it for herbs. You'll do this much quicker. And that's one of the reasons I want to have this cost estimate, is to force people to look at where can we do it cheaper? Where can we save time? Is it worth me buying an old washer, spending 3 hours on changing the thing and make it fit for my roots? It's definitely worth it if you realize you spend 90 minutes on washing roots in the cold. We need to add that. It's not comfortable neither. Cutting, same thing. Is there a machine that you can cut with? Anyhow, total cost, $126. Sales price, $45 a pound, is really what you can sell it for, unless you sell really large amounts wholesale. So this is based on small buyers, not your persons that want to have a couple of ounces, because that brings it really up. This is for an herbalist that wants to buy like four pounds of red sage. Sales price $360. So per acre you would make $6,000. But the difference between 360 and 126, which that is 180, well, 140, whatever. That's your profit, and that's not bad for a 50 feet long row. But keep in mind, it's been a lot of work, and there's question marks. But there is a really big margin for profit with these crops.
One question, please.
Yes.
Henriette, the question is, what is garbling?
Oh, garbling. Yeah, garbling is something I should have taken out. Garbling is what you do when you have leaves, like you have lemon balm. The persons that buy the lemon balm don't want the plants on the stems. They want them to be crumbled up. So garbling is the crumbling. You take the leaves off the stem and then you crumble them. So you can use it for teas. You don't sell the whole leaves neither. You break them down already. That's what they call garbling. It's not a word you learn in an English dictionary when you come here.
And then what is the fastest way to do that?
The fastest way, yeah, that depends the way you dry it. I hang my herbs. And so what I do is I just take them off the stem with one movement because they're hanging. I have like a bouquet of dried lemon balm and I just go down with my hands and then they crumble. That's one way. The other way is you put them on a screen and you just push them through the screen. It's labor intensive. It's a lot. It's one of the things that's a lot of work. The other way you can do it is use a big a chopper, and Vitamix. It will chop it up, but you have to be careful that you don't powder it at the same time. So none of this is needed for ashwagandha because there's no leaves that you're using. Same thing, $304. Your cost is only $91. Your cost is lower because they're easier to harvest, and they really shade themselves out from the weeds, so it's a little easier. Ashwagandha pricing is going up a lot because it's totally sold out. I don't think you can buy any American grown ashwagandha anymore, and I really wish I had grown like acres of that stuff, but you never know. Maybe next year there's going to be people growing acres and the price will fall. Michael Skullcap, what's this cute little blue flower with the yellow roots? Same thing, it's a Chinese herb. I haven't even mentioned that the Chinese herbs are really increasing in price because of the transportation and the problem in the trade with China. Some Chinese growers are now no longer growing in China. They have gone to other countries, not Western countries. So that might keep the price low a little bit, but it's also doubtful how the quality is going to be. A good quality Chinese crop that has been dried following Chinese methods will be worth money for companies that create Chinese herbs. But also Western herbalists have a huge interest, definitely in Baikal skullcap or in red sage, because it's so much used. The Baikal skullcap is very effective, or it has, I should be careful with what I'm saying, but it's used a lot in research for cancer. It's also nice for allergies. Echinacea. Echinacea pricing has gone up. We have to thank the COVID for this, because it has been sold as one of the herbs that you can use after you have been sick, because it's an immune builder. So prices are really going up. And also, another thing I haven't mentioned, the local herbalists are more willing to pay more because they understand the quality. One thing we should all do together is have a little high level of arrogance, I think, and say my herbs have a superior quality because I have all this attention. They've gotten all the attention, they have gotten the right soil. My herbs are worth more than those herbs that you buy at the big companies, and you will use less of it. And that's really something we have to bring out into the world in order for us, for the growers, to get our cost out of it and to make a nice profit. Because we should, I paid people $14 an hour last year. It's much more, it's a little bit more than minimum wage, but I want the people that do this kind of work to be paid well, because they take care of everybody that has some kind of health challenge. The people that work on it need to be healthy and be able to live themselves. So when you start selling, explain that this is your theory. You have to pay your people a decent amount. You can work with volunteers, but even if you work with volunteers, you make costs for them. So still calculate like you have labor. I think this was my last thing. Yes, this is all the info we had last time. I want to add this added New Crops Organics. It's from North Carolina State University, and you can just Google North Carolina State University herb growing, and you get out onto this site. This is a huge, let me see what's going to happen when I hit this. It is an enormous amount of extremely useful information. And yeah, it's not going to work. Sorry for that. It's everything that I have just told you, not everything, but a lot of it you will be able to find back in there. Oh, there we go. It also has an exchange place where people offer what they are selling, and other people are asking, do you have anything for me? Well, I don't know what's happening now. It's clearly, oh, there it comes. Do we have any questions? Oh, there you go. So can you guys see this? I guess you can.
No, we're not seeing it.
Oh, you don't? Oh, man.
No, but I'm going to put this link. I've almost finished typing it in the
put it in the chat. Yeah, that's what I had planned on doing. Let me do a new share here.
Okay, that will probably work. Ah, we see it now.
You see it now. Yeah, I would really advise anybody to go over here and just read about it. And it's more than just herbs. There's a whole area of mushrooms, of if you live more inland than I do, if you're close to the Appalachian, it's very informative on crops like ginseng. It's a fantastic website. I see more questions here. Oh, that's you. Thank you.
Yes, that's that. But there is a question. It says, what resources do you use for learning about herbs and their medicinal uses? Books specifically.
Yeah, I was going to include that. If you live in Maryland, relatively close to Washington, D.C., and you want to learn more about the use of herbs and a little bit about growing, then I would say go to Wild Ginger Center, I think it is. It's south of Washington, D.C. They have a series of classes, and they also, this is what I really like, they have in-house classes. They're real classes, not online, which I think is so much better. Books, if I stop sharing this, you can see books. The books that I really like is a book about Chinese herbs from Peg Shaver, the book from Carpenter, forgot his first name, I have them in the bag here. Growing Medicinal Herbs is a really good book. It's written by, sorry, Carpenter is the last name. It'll pop up when you put it in Amazon. And then Strictly Medicinal has a couple of books that are really nice, especially for people that are not aiming at being a commercial herb farmer. I think his one book is very nice to learn in a really fun way how you can grow herbs if you have like half an acre, then you just want to grow, or even less, you just want to grow it for yourself. Those are really the three main sources. There are many books out. There are also many online classes for what can I do with herbs, and there are different approaches. They're aiming at different ages. You just need to go through them and pick what you like. And Wild Ginger Herbal Center, that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much. If you're close to Washington, D.C., this is a fantastic center. They also have a really fun class for children. And maybe it's wrong for me to make plain advertisement, but those are the closest one. Yeah, that's it. I hope you come back in 2 weeks. Then I will create a listing of good sources for both growing but also for understanding what you can do with your herbs. When you grow herbs, and you want to at least know what you can tell about them. You want to know what you should say and what you should not say. You want to know what's really proven to work, and you want to share what helps you. That's always a good thing to do. Definitely if you get visitors and you're more in the agritourism. But you have also to know what you cannot say. That's important. Like me saying it helps for cancer, the Bicle Skullcap it's wrong. You don't want to do that. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Do we have any more questions? No more questions?
There's one more.
Okay.
Can you see it? I can read it.
Oh, here, go back to the garbling.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to the garbling. You mentioned you can put them into a food processor. Just be careful doing it. I assume that means you can put the stem in. Well, you have to be very careful that you don't create powder. The stem, it depends what you have. If you have Skullcap, I mean, if you have a lemon balm, because we just mentioned that, you don't want to add the stem because the people that buy your herb don't want to have too much stem in it. And also because the stem has less medicinal value than the leaves. Now, if you have Skullcap, you're okay to have parts of the stem in there, but you could chop up the total stem after you dry it. You can totally powder any kind of leafy plant. If you're talking roots, for roots, it's practical to chop them up before you dry them to prevent that you break your knife and your back and everything on the cats are extremely hard. Where do you get the seeds from? Yeah, my rule for seed buying, if I don't know the company where I buy from, I want them to have the Latin names with it. I think that's a reasonable way of checking if they're good or not, high quality or not. If they don't have the Latin names with it, I will often call them and see if they can explain to me how they get their seeds. And sometimes I know the people. Other thing that I use, if I see a seed company that sells holy basil and it doesn't identify what kind of holy basil it is, then I'm very black and white. I'm like, if you don't understand there are different kinds of holy basils, then I'm not going to buy any of your seeds. It's probably extreme, but it's, if you have a company, you need to be able to totally identify the plants that you are selling the seeds from. Other things I look at, if a seed company sells peppermint seeds, they're out for me, because peppermint, you cannot grow seeds. You cannot grow peppermint from seeds. So that's kind of like in a negative way of figuring it out. I buy seeds from, I buy seeds, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. I buy some seeds. I buy a lot of cover crops from them, and also some of the seeds. And then I do some from Johnny's. I do, what is this? Fat Coast. Yeah, Fat Coast Seeds has good seeds. They always do well. They always come up. It's just not a small company, and it's not totally the same attitude or motivation that I have, but the seeds are good. And then we have Richter in Canada, in Ontario, somewhere not too far from New York. They have the biggest choice. Richter, R-I-C-H-T-E-R. They have a huge amount. They also have, for many of them, really good explanations on how you want to grow them. And then we have Strictly Medicinal. They are very well known. They have a lot of seeds. They give a lot of information away, even just by going onto the website. It's very nice. The problem is, I prefer to, because I'm on the East Coast, I prefer East Coast companies for my seeds, which is not always possible. Chinese seeds I buy from Peck Shaver, who is in California, so my whole approach goes wrong there. But that's because I know they are good seeds. So, do we have any more questions?
There's a question in the Q&A box.
If I don't want to grow herbs, where can I get herbs to purchase? What are the good places in the area? Well, if you're in Maryland area, then send me an email, because there's a group of herb farmers, and I will get you that link next time too. I didn't think about doing that. It's a group of herb growers and herb users that come together on a regular basis. They have classes for each other, and they explain what they are doing. So the growers have explained to the users how they grow, and the users have explained to the growers what they're looking for. So if you want to just purchase them, or not just, if you want to purchase herbs, send me an email and I will get you in touch with this group. If you are just a private person and you only want to have some herbs for yourself, then it's still a good idea to approach these people, this group, because all the herb growers that are in the Mid-East, whatever we call this area, the Chesapeake Bay region, most of them belong to this group, and some of them are big and some of them are smaller, and they will be able to sell you half a pound of Skullcap and 2 pounds of Echinacea. It's just a matter of finding out where to go on time. The best is to ask around now, and then when they start growing, you get it fresh. Any herb grower in this area, almost everybody is sold out. There's very, very few herbs at the moment that are local. And that's because suddenly there's this huge request for it. Did it help? Any more questions? Oh, we have one more here. Oh, there it is. Herbcraft Gmail. Thank you, Jenny. Yes, herbcraft@gmail.com. That is exactly the group that I was referring to. Thank you for adding that.
Mm-hmm.
So helpful. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah. So and one thing, you can always connect with me. I'm always here, ready to help you, answer questions or give advice. And most of the herb growers in the area will be able to assist with questions. There are more classes being taught in the area. One for the next 2 classes. So the next class is we're going to talk about garbling in the next class. That's on growing leafy herbs. The class after that, we're going to more talk about what you can do with it and what are your products and what are the regulations that I need to be aware of. Then April the 30th, I hope to see everybody at UMES here, because we are going to have a program where you can see how they grow. We will be doing some planting. I also have asked a soil specialist to come and to really give more in-depth information on soil. And I will be approaching somebody that makes creams and tinctures, so you can see how that's going to work. And then hopefully my colleague Nadine Burton will be able to talk about growing ginger and hibiscus and turmeric. So it's going to be interesting. That's April the 30th. Okay, well, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for your patience. Sorry for the people that couldn't find us. And hopefully we will see each other next time. And we have recorded it this time for real. So we will, if you want to have the recording, just let us know. And I don't know if it automatically is being mailed to you or not, but if not, then just ask us for it. All right, thank you. Thank you, Suzanne, for staying online with us.
Very welcome. It will be sent out today, especially since we know that so many people had problems joining. That's something we'll have to work out. But it will be posted today and sent out through Eventbrite to everyone who actually signed up. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Everybody has a good day and good growing season.